Okay, thank you. Hello, today is August 5th, 2021. This is the regular meeting for the City of Morro Bay Harbor Advisory Board. Lori, we have a quorum, and Lori, can you take roll?
Sure. Member Hanson.
Here.
Member Dowdy. Member Myosin. Member Myers. Member O'Brien. Member French.
Yes.
Member Bale. Member Witkowski.
Here.
I think I was on mute. This is.
We have a 4-member quorum.
We have 4?
We have 4.
Whew, okay. Okay, well, and the next thing to do is a moment of silence. But before we do that, we lost somebody in our government, Council Member Red Davis, to ALS, and he was near and dear to me. He has a lot to do with why I am on this board. I really appreciated everything that he did as a councilman. He always listened to people and gathered as much information. And I hope that I can do as good as he did as far as being able to listen to people and really outreach into the community. And I think he affected a lot of people's lives positively, and he was a great attribute to Morro Bay. So with that, can we have a moment of silence, please? All right. Member Witkowski, council member, or never mind, I'm starting this off really good. Okay. Mary Witkowski, would you like to start us off in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you for that. I know it's weird because when you're doing it, everybody talking into it. So thank you. And I'm glad that we can still do that even while we Zoom. Okay. So we have the next part is member announcements. And so we're 4 of us. So I'll just go around the table unless somebody has joined. Lori, if somebody joins, could you just let me know?
Yes. Yeah.
And if that happens. Okay. So, all right. So I'm going to start with you, Mary, again. Do you have any announcements for this meeting?
Should we, if it's like updates on like goals or stuff that we were assigned, should we do that now or wait for later in the...
I would, since it's an agenda item, if it's one of your outreach groups, I would do that for later. And if it's one of the business items for the goals, I would do that later, just because it's already agendized.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have any other announcements then.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. And then we have a new member to me, Lori French. You've been on it before, I believe. You're the alternate for Jeremiah. And could you introduce yourself and let us know if you have any announcements to make since you're stepping in?
I don't have any announcements to make, and I'm busy collecting eggs for my egg business at the same time, so forgive me.
All right. Well, we're really glad that we have you because that makes a quorum. And so any way we can get you, that's great. So thank you. And I'll move over to our newest edition, which We got time. All right. Thanks, Lori.
Thanks.
All right, so we have a new member, Cal Myers. I had the opportunity to sit down and have a cup of coffee with him, and seems like a great addition, and he's really go-getter and wants to take on all the work that we can throw at him. Probably right, Cal?
Yeah, sounds all right.
Can you go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone, and then at the end, if you have any announcements of things that ongoings or whatnot.
Yeah, so again, welcome to meet the team. Again, Cal Myers. I live here in Morro Bay, just literally right down the street from the vet center. So that's why it's kind of interesting. Just literally, I can see it from my window here in the office that I work. Again, I'm excited to help. I've gotten some good information from Lori and Eric. I met with Don Addis, had a cup of coffee at Top Dog last week, and just trying to get a feel for where my skills kind of slot in. For a day job, I do IT work as project manager, so my job is to get people to do things on my behalf, and hopefully they get credit for it and fix anything that gets broken along the way. So I'm excited to join. There's a lot of things going on, and excited to lend a hand. And no announcements other than what I've already said.
All right. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you, Cal. And I look forward to spending more time and talking and getting more of the HAB things talked about, discussed, and researched and all that good stuff. So thank you so much for joining the team. And we'll be talking to you soon about all the different other subcommittees and things. So, yeah, just a moment. Okay, so our next thing is we have Bill LaFay with us today. He's going to do a presentation for the Friends of Morro Bay Harbor Department. He's been up to a lot. So where?
I'm right here.
All right.
Do you see me?
I do. Yay. Okay. All right, Bill, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I just wanted to update the HAB and the community here on our campaign to raise $100,000 for the retrofit of the new patrol boat. I think I was at the HAB meeting about 8 months ago, and we started with a goal of $100,000. As of this moment, we have collected about $61,000. We're at 60%. And just recently, we had a wonderful benefactor in Castle Wynn giving us a matching grant of $20,000 as long as the community will match that $20,000. And with that, we have to date already raised about $7,000. So I would think probably by the end of the summer, we will reach our goal of raising $100,000 for the Harbor Department to help retrofitting the new patrol boat that is being worked on right now at Radden. So I'm just amazed at the community support. With COVID and with things, we really haven't had to have a lot of outreach except for through newspapers and just a lot of great people that believe in the harbor and believe in the goals that we're trying to reach. And I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that's been involved, and please continue to try to match that $20,000 so that we can reach our end goal. And I'm just wanted to update everyone on that too. So is there any questions or anything?
All right. Is there another event happening soon that the Friends of Morro Bay?
Well, we're doing it. Ron Reisner is actually heading up a wine auction. We're doing a live wine auction. Currently, you'll see it on our website. Just go to www.friendsofthemorrobayharbordepartment.org, and you'll see that. We have asked the community to donate some bottles, and then we're going to have a live auction on September 15th. That's our new thing that we're doing right now. But our main objective is to get out to the community this last push so that we can try to match that $20,000 to that Castle Wind was so generous to donate to us a couple weeks ago. So that's really all we're doing right at this point in time.
Okay, that's wonderful. Yeah, so we'll all try, and even with the outreach groups that we have, mention that we're trying to get, that you're trying to get some more, and how they can find you in order to get that funds up and to the 100%.
I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the community support and everyone's support for this wonderful endeavor. I mean, we need a safe patrol fleet, and I'm just amazed that I was asked to participate in this program, and I think we're going to meet our goal. I'm almost positive. I mean, I can almost attest to that right now.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for all your work, and I know that the Harbor Department staff really appreciates it, and will be glad to have that boat in the water.
Okay. Thank you so much now, and have a good meeting.
All right. Thank you, Bill.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we have, we're lucky enough to, we have our, Lori, do we have Alla Weinstein on the panel?
We do.
Okay, so I would like to introduce our next presentation, which is Alla Weinstein from Castle Wind.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to give you an update on Offshore Wind and what's happening, what will be coming. It's a pleasure to see all of you, even though it's virtually. And I'm glad to be able to say that after 5 years, things are starting to move forward. So if that's okay, I would like to just show you 2 slides. One is the map that BOEM has issued, and one would be the schedule. So hopefully I will be able to share my screen. If I can figure out how to share. Let's see. Here's my Zoom. Sharing that and I won't be sharing. Here we go. Okay. Can you see the map?
Yep.
Okay. So last week, BOEM issued a call for nomination and information of the expanded Morro Bay area. You probably all remember the call from 2018. And if you can see my cursor, can you see my cursor? Right? Mm-hmm. Okay, the original call from 2018 is what's kind of within this white area up there. That call was for 300, a little bit over 300 square miles. Since then, over the last 2 years, there were a number of discussions, and some of you may have participated on some of the calls last year, in the spring of last year, where military basically suggested to add area on the north, to add area on the south. And after negotiations with Department of Defense and the California Coastal Commission, BOEM issued additional call, which is what the call that was published last week, for these additional areas on the west, which they call West Extension of 118 square miles, and East Extension, which is this little piece of 23 square miles. The final area will be whatever will result from these calls, whether they will or will not add the west and the east, but the original call area will be chopped off at the top. So this peak, the Matterhorn peak, will disappear. Reason being that this northern portion of the call area coincides with the southern boundary of the military training route. And effectively, that's the result of the negotiations with the Department of Defense, where they preserve their training routes entry, which kind of comes over on shore. But if you project that line all the way to shore, you will see where the training route comes. And depending on whether both areas will be added, if both areas will be added, that would be something that BOEM calls now Morro Bay 399, because that's how many square miles is going to be there. If this piece does not get added because of potential objections to it based on visual impact, fishermen do not like it, whatever, then we're going to have 376 square miles. One way or another, we'll see where we're going to end up in 45 days. The comments are due by the 13th of September, and these comments will establish what this area is going to be. Once that happens, the next thing that's going to happen is what's known as area. Okay, now you can see the next piece, right? The next slide. Okay, what we are right now is kind of right here. This is the request for information and call, which happened. Once they get the comments, then Volume is going to do what's known as area identification to define the wind energy area. And they will also announce starting of the environmental assessment for that wind energy area. And after they've done that part, then they're going to take whatever that area will be and divide it into sites that they're going to auction out. Our anticipation is that they will divide the area into 2 to 3 sites, and then they're going to auction out each of those sites. And each developer that wants to bid on those sites can bid on one of those sites. So that is conceivable that the area will see 2 to 3 developers that will be selected through the bidding process. Now, you also probably know that that the area in the north, under the same call that they put out last week, is already going to move into area identification. That's what they're going to do in Humboldt area. So where we are right here, this is where we are. Public commenting period for 45 days. That ends on September 13th. Humboldt, on the other hand, already going through the area identification of the wind energy areas and the environmental assessment. The two areas, Central California and Northern California, will converge. And by the beginning of next year, sometime in the first quarter of next year, we're going to see the proposed sale notice. And at the same time, there will be a Coastal Zone Management Act consultation with the California Coastal Commission. And that's what's shown here. It's going to be in the spring of 2022. After that, there will be a public notice commenting period for 60 days. And after the proposed sale notice and after the commenting period, then they're going to put out the final sale notice, which is slated for summer or maybe summer about of 2022. So that is the process that we're looking at right now. How many companies are going to win the sites? Like I said, it's going to be 2 to 3. Boeing is hearing from the constituents, from the public, that the multi-factor auction, which is a format that they can do, where they acknowledge certain companies that have done certain amount of preliminary work that makes the project happen and has a high chances of success. And what will be included in those multi-factors, we do not know yet, but Boeing is hearing from the public and those that are interested in commenting. So we would encourage you to take those comments seriously. If you have any questions about what the multi-factor does, how it works, we're happy to answer any questions. And at this point, I'll just stop and ask you to ask questions, because I think it will be better for me to answer your questions rather than me kind of doing a monologue.
Okay. All right. So questions. I'm going to just start with member Lori French. Do you want to start with questions?
Not at this time. I have to bring myself up to speed on quite a few things yet.
Okay. All righty. Okay, then that takes us to Member Witkowski. Would you have any questions?
Yeah, sure. First, I wanted to just say, thank you to Ms. Weinstein for all the impact that you've had just for our country and world on alternative energy. I was reading about your background, and it's extremely impressive. I had a question. What you mentioned about visibility. I had a question, when is the right time, or has there been research on how visible the wind farms will be from the shore and like the potential impact for people's real estate prices from that?
Well, first of all, thank you for your comments. Yes, I've been in marine renewables for the last 21 years actually. And I'm happy to be able to continue moving first and actually see the actual wind installed. So that would be my ultimate objective, I think. As it comes to visibility, you will be happy to hear that Castle Wind did do visibility projections. We did tree simulations from various locations going up to Hearst Castle. As you can imagine, Hearst Castle is very high up, so that's going to have the highest or the longest view shed. The images and the posters from those simulations are in the harbor department. So if you ask Eric, he will probably be happy to hang them on the wall and show you what you will not see. But that's the answer. Take a look at them. They are all specifically stated where they are. And I think it would be very interesting to see them again. The last time we showed them was in October of 2018. We are thinking of doing another public session, and we'll probably pull out those images again and show you what they are. What we did is we projected that the farm will be kind of right here. So that would be the images that you will see kind of at the boundary of the west boundary of the Monterey Bay Sanctuary. As it comes to real estate values, I have no idea. I really can't say anything about the real estate values. I can only speak about visual impacts, and the visual impacts are going to be very minimal. But don't take my word for it. Ask Eric to show you the posters. They're there.
Thanks. I think it could be interesting for us to like Eric, and just for us on the harbor, but how we can like share that information, whether it's via like Nextdoor or I don't know, just like kind of getting that information out so it's more widely seen.
Yeah, also Boeing does have on their website the simulations that they did, but they did them for those closer to shore areas. That said, I'll send you the link. I'll send Eric a link. And you should definitely take a look at what Boeing put together. They did the simulation. They have a, I think, YouTube video as well. But if you really want to see the pictures in true simulation, they are at your disposal in Eric's hands.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, Eric, are you at the office?
I am. I don't know that trying to unfurl them in front of the
No, that wouldn't work. No.
I mean, they're like this tall and 4 feet wide. They're huge.
Okay, so they're
3 by 5. They're very large.
Yeah,
they're really very
it's
large.
not going to work.
All right. Okay. So our next member, we have Cal Myers. Do you have any questions for Hala?
A couple, they may be sort of premature, but there was this one thing you mentioned about merging the north and south, the two areas, the Morro Bay and Humboldt. I assume this map only has the Morro Bay area in it. That's right.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry, is that any better?
Well, let's try it again.
Let's see. Try different.
It doesn't sound like your headphones are connected to your computer because it sounds like you're talking into a speaker.
Sure. Let me try a different headset. Give me 1 second. Is that any better?
Oh, much better. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the heads up. So on one of the slides, you mentioned that the two areas, Humboldt and Morro Bay, may merge at some later date.
Merge only to the point that the auction will be one auction for both areas, not merge as physical merging. Just that the auction and the proposed sale notice and final sale notice will be for both areas at the same time. And the developers, when they can bid, they can only bid on one site. either in the north or in the Morro Bay area, whichever they choose.
Sure. And I guess the reason I asked that question is that, Morro Bay is obviously excited about it. There's, the harbor there, there may be revenue opportunities there, leverage some of the infrastructure at the power plant. And I was just wondering if with the merging of those two entities, if that would impact that at all. And it sounds like the answer is no.
Right. No, because they're not merging physically. They're merging in the procedural auction process.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, cool. And then, like I said, this is probably way far out, but once the construction starts, how long would you estimate that it would take for one of the companies to build out their sites when they start, putting the footings in and whatnot, fairing out the propeller blades?
Okay, first of all, we're talking about floating offshore wind, not fixed foundations. So the word construction is not exactly the word you want to use. You want to use the word more installation, because the units, physical units, they assemble on shore and then they're towed, fully assembled, and get connected to the mooring lines that have been pre-laid ahead of time. So what you're going to see physically offshore, they're going to be very large anchors, properly sized for the units. They will be installed in the ocean floor. And then the mooring lines are connected to the buoys that you're going to see on top. And then once the units are assembled on shore, then they're towed and get connected. So how long is this installation period? It's probably going to take about 3 years per gigawatt. So let's assume that there will be 3 sites for 1 gigawatt each. It will probably take 9 years in total, unless there will be multiple areas where you can assemble those devices in parallel rather than in serial fashion. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we have very limited infrastructure on the West Coast in general. And so where and how things will get assembled becomes a question. Now, because there are 3 different companies that will be doing work, each of them will want to do it as fast as possible. But in practical sense, it's going to take 3 years per project.
Okay. But there's still some connection back to land, so you got to lay cables across the floor and things like that. Okay.
Correct. That's right. So there will be, each developer will have their own cable coming to shore. We, through our community benefits agreement, identified that we would like to bring the cable into the old outflow tunnel of the power plant and use that tunnel to bring the cable physically to the substation. That particular connection would only allow connection of 1 gigawatt. You will not be able to connect all 3 projects in there. I don't think it's going to fit cable-wise. So it is conceivable that the other cables would be going to other locations. How it's going to be done, it's too early to define. There are so many other potential proposals that could come in place, and so we just don't know yet.
Yeah, because the next one down shore is obviously Diablo.
True, but there is could be like a hub that you would put offshore from which you would then do something else. So at this point, I just cannot answer that question because there's so many options available, and we'll just have to see what happens after the auction and how those competitors may become frenemies and do something together.
Perfect. Fair enough. All right. I appreciate it. That's all the questions I have. Charisse?
Charisse, may I interrupt real quick?
Yeah.
I just want to confirm that we have Member Vale on the panel.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Member Vale?
Is he there?
I am.
Okay.
So you're here.
Thank you.
When did you sign on? Have you been able to listen to the whole presentation, or do you have any questions?
I got on about 5 minutes ago and wish I had heard the whole thing.
Okay. So at this point, I'm still going to ask you, do you have any questions, or are you going to
No.
pass for right now? Okay. All right. So that goes to me. And so I have a couple questions. You said 2 to 3 developers. So the area that they're dedicating to possibly having wind turbines out there, they're thinking that 2 to 3 different companies are going to purchase portions, and they're not going to just do one one entity, or could it possibly be 1 to 2, 2 to 3?
Now, whatever quantity of sites they're going to parcel that into, that's how many developers you're going to have.
Okay.
So if they parcel it into 2, you're going to have 2 developers. If they parcel into 3, there will be 3 developers.
Okay. And so out of those, if they want to, they can have the lines coming into a different area.
Right. Now, the issue is going to be, as you can see on this chart, right, the marine chart, you see the squiggly lines on the south? Those are telecom cables coming out of Los Osos. So let's assume you want to bring the cable to the Morro, to the Diablo Canyon power plant that has excess capacity, which is right over here, actually, on the power lines. Then you will have to do something to jump over this this telecom cables, because they're active cables. That's where Verizon and others, effectively provide you a telecom service. So the challenges become a little bit different than just coming into the tunnel at the north end of the Morro Rock. And that's why I'm saying, there are so many questions that nobody can really answer right now. But one way or another, there will be 2 to 3 developers. And like I said, they may very well become frenemies, and they may very well start thinking about it together rather than individually. But at this point, we can't really say much or anything.
Right. Okay. And then the lease sites that you said that there's going to be a sale. So they're selling the ocean areas and because they are large turbines, is this going to be completely off limits? I've never heard of selling. That's just me. I've just never heard of selling areas of water, but it most likely is true. It just seems a little strange that you could put like a perimeter around it that wouldn't allow people to go in. Is that something that would happen, like an off-limits area?
Well, the area will probably be off limits for certain activities of fishing, like trolling and netting and longline, because you have a lot of mooring lines and you have electrical cables going there. Other regular boats, small boats can pass through the area. Yes, the area will not be off limits, but you cannot pass through it. You can, but you also have large wind turbines sitting there. So there will be some provisions for the safety factors, which is something Coast Guard is looking into. For right now, I think what they basically will tell us that we have to space units 1 nautical mile apart, and that's just that. But yes, Bureau of Ocean Energy Management under the Energy Act of 2005 is authorized to lease the Outer Continental Shelf for renewable energy development, and that's what they have as an authorization. So they are they're auctioning the right to develop renewable energy generation installation on the outer continental shelf of the United States that belong to the federal government, effectively, the citizens of the United States.
Okay, and then so it's going to be a lease, and does that have a time limit to it, like 150 years, 100 years? What is the max?
The leases right now go for about 30 years. I think they're talking about expanding them to 35 years. Think about it as a hydropower plant. Normally, the hydropower plant will have a license or permit for about 50 years, which comes also with effectively a lease. So it's very similar to the same thing. Once your lease is expiring, which is also equal to the life expectancy of the wind turbines, we will see what happens, because we didn't get to that point yet. We only have very few leases issued. It is conceivable that the same way as in the hydropower relicensing, you will go through the releasing and life extension of the hardware, because all the units can be brought back to shore, refurbished, and put back and extend their life.
Okay. All right. Okay. And my last question question is, you were talking about installation, and I know a lot of these things are extremely large, and you might not, I assume you'd still thought about it, but it's not 100% where it would actually occur. But is the harbor of Morro Bay big enough for an entry and exit to take these turbines installation and go out from our harbor, or are you going to have to do the transferring from land to the water somewhere else?
The units are much bigger than anything that can fit into the Morro Bay Harbor. The Morro Bay Harbor is fairly small. It's shallow. It gets stretched. The mouth, the entry is very narrow. We're talking about the units that height-wise will be taller than Seattle Space Needle, which is 3 feet tall, and they are also very wide. It could be anywhere between 150 feet to almost 300 feet wide. So no, there is no way we can fit into the Morro Bay area at all. The only thing we're looking to do in Morro Bay is going to be crew transfer. So part of our community benefits agreement with the city of Morro Bay is to establish a monitoring center in the city of Morro Bay and have our offices, monitoring offices there. And we're looking at probably repurposing the pump house, which is right in the harbor, and use that area and improve the harbor such that we can use the crew transfer vessels out of the harbor of Morro Bay, and maybe even Port St. Louis. Where the units will be physically assembled, we do not yet know. Because there is really no port close by that's big enough. The closest island is going to be Port Hueneme, but even that is marginal in terms of its ability to house these units. So the answer is very much undefined. We are doing the study to assess all the options that we have in front of us. And at this point, I just cannot answer that question because we're not there yet. It will take a lot of time to figure it out. And we will know the answer as we go forward. That said, you probably have seen the study done by Cal Poly on the economic potential to the St. Louis Obispo County of the offshore wind and a wind port that they recommended that should be put in place in order for the county to benefit the most. And so we'll see how things develop going forward.
Okay. All right. Okay. So that's good to know. There won't be a lot of installing in our area. I know that like Diablo Canyon, they have patrol boats that make sure that people are not within a certain distance of the power plant. Are you going to require, or do you know at this point that you're going to require a maintenance crew / patrol boat to make sure everything's working and nobody's that's most probably will be the case.
And those can feasibly, they can actually, if you're going to have offices in Morro Bay, that could be some employment for some of our residents to be patrol officers and go out there.
Right. And that's exactly how our community benefits agreement is structured, and the mutual benefits agreement with the fishing organization of the Morro Bay and Port St. Louis, that they will have somewhat the first priority in offering their services as long as they meet our requirements and what's needed. But yes, that will probably be the case.
All right, wonderful. Okay. With that, does anybody else have any other questions that they thought about? Saying no? All right. Well, thank you so much, Ala Weinstein, for coming and giving us that presentation. Very appreciated.
Thank you. It's again, thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk about offshore wind with anybody. So if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out. Eric definitely knows how to get a hold of me. And when you have an opportunity, stop by his office and maybe he'll unroll those big posters. And if we do manage to do another public session, we'll certainly hang them on the walls. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Okay. So, okay, well, that was a great presentation. I know that I forgot to include myself in member announcements, so I'm going to take this opportunity just to backtrack a touch and let everybody know, if they don't know already, that Red Davis, his memorial service they're going to have is going to be on August 9th at 10 a.m. at the Cloisters Park. And there should be some flyers and things on the Morro Bay website if you forget and you want to look at it again for any of those. And then another announcement is that our city manager, Scott Collins, has been doing a lot of public outreach, getting to let everybody know that we're revisiting the paid parking issue, and that they've got back the analysis study to see if we have an issue with parking, which everybody can agree, yeah, we got an issue. So they're moving forward, and that's going to go onto the city council's agenda and possibly find itself back in our lap. So there is a flyer going out, and again, you can just check the city website if you want to know more about paid parking or any kind of parking management that is going to be being discussed and possibly put into effect. Okay, so with next we have the consent calendar. Would anyone like, nope, it's public comment time. So is there anybody out there? Hi, Ian.
We have no raised hands in the queue. Okay, all right.
Okay, well then, there was public comment time, so now we're moving on to consent calendar. Would anyone on the board like to pull any of the items on the consent calendar? I see no hands. Let's see if I can see if anybody, nope, I don't see any hands. So I will, I moved from one place to the other, and I don't have my little cheat sheet on how this is supposed to go. Do we have to vote to approve, or somebody needs to motion to approve the consent calendar as is?
Correct. Someone needs to move approval of the consent agenda, if that's appropriate.
Okay, so I know a lot of you guys are new at this point, but someone should say, since they don't want to pull any of the items, someone needs to say, I move to approve the minutes for the Harbor Advisory Board meeting May 6th.
I'll be the new guy. I approve.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay. As well as, they just need to say that we move to approve the consent calendar as is, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So go ahead, Cal, say what I just said.
Oh, I have to repeat it. It's like the vows again. I move to approve the consent to calendar as is.
That was so great. Okay.
All right.
Chris?
I second it.
Yay! All right, and it passes, and we get to move on to our business items now. Okay, so
and Cherise,
yes.
Oh. Let me just do a quick roll call vote.
Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Member Hansen?
Yes.
Member Myers?
Approve.
Member Wachowski?
Yes.
Member French? Member French?
Approve. Sorry, I was trying to get off mute.
Yes. And Member Vale?
Approve.
Okay. Motion passes.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay, so we're going to move on to the business items, starting with marine services. And I gotta go. Keep going. Okay, so marine services. Refresh my memory. I believe that there is only one HAB member on this right now, and it's Member Vale, correct?
So far,
Okay.
I'm inviting others. I have also rousted Ron Reisner. I've rousted Dana McLeish. I've rousted Bruce Marshall. Everybody knows Dana and Ron, I suppose. Does everybody know who Bruce Marshall is? Bruce Marshall grew up here, was a champion sailor, ended up running Monterey Boat Works, a major yard in the Caribbean, 3 yards in Washington, 2 of which boat yards these are, 2 of which he was sort of responsible for the design and implementation of the construction. He wasn't the contractor. He's down here, he's moved back, and he's on board. So the ad hoc committee only has 1 actual HAB member on it. So if anybody else is interested anyway, from the fishing side, Cal, is that the touchdown? What was it?
Yes, that's. I'm more than happy to help.
You're in. Okay, we have to
volunteering twice.
Right. What I'm going to do is I want to talk to each of these players has experience, and in the next couple of weeks I want to sit down 1-to-1, so we're not talking all over each other.
Sure.
Find out what their perspective are individually, and then we'll get together and try and figure out if there's some resolution to the concept of having some form of boatyard in Morro Bay, which we used to have 1.5 of, and now we have half, for just the purpose that we observed here in the past couple of weeks. You know, we lost a boat.
Yeah, there's a lot of boats in the harbor that need some love. That's for
right.
Sure.
And whether that happens or it's just a facility for that, and now what do we do once they have a problem? We at least have to address it. There's a lot of naysayers and a lot of lack of will as far as what I consider the city at large. But anyway, that's what I'm up to. Matter of fact, interestingly, I took the month off because we all did in July, but I went to work for an Embarcadero vendor. It got me much closer to what the people on the street are saying. And so we'll talk about that as well, because it's we're all part of the same harbor, whether we fish or sell jewelry or whatever we do.
Sell boats.
That's what I have.
Great. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Eric, did you want to say anything or do a report for this item?
No, I have no report. And it's great, Chris, you've got some more interest, and that's why we made these ad hoc committees, so we could get some folks from the outside, not on the board necessarily.
Yep.
So I forwarded you that Fishing Community Sustainability Plan. You should spread around the group. The Harbor Advisory Board a few meetings ago, basically there's consensus for it to sort of spread its wings and go just beyond boatyard and really look at all the things that making a working waterfront working, whether that's ice machine, fish docks, whatever. And so we've got to start thinking about, what the committee wants to do and address in that regard. So
sure.
But other than that, no, I just want to throw that out there.
Sure. The concept of marine services can be a pretty broad concept. I will compliment you, though. You have sent me a document that is roughly the same length as Ernest Hemingway's Old Man and the Sea. It's 127 pages.
Yeah.
But we'll get into it.
Okay. That's all I have.
All right. Okay, so from what I understand, we need to nominate another HAB member on board, or he can nominate himself, I would guess. And I would second that if that's the way that we could do that.
I will nominate Cal Myers to be on my committee.
All right, I'll second it. Is that a vote item, Lori?
Eric?
Yeah. You need, anytime you make a motion to do something, you have to vote on it. And just to clarify, according to the bylaws, all the board members on committees, they need to be approved by a majority of the board, not Ron and the others. The folks from the outside we can bring on as we need to. So just the board members need to be voted on.
Okay. So with that, we will, Lori, can you do a roll call vote for bringing Cal Myers onto the ad hoc committee for marine services?
Sure. And would Cal be considered vice chair? Is that what it is?
I didn't know that we had vice.
Is it chair or vice chair, or are they just members?
No, Chris is the chair. We established that last time. And then, we got a hand up as well. So I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if there's a vice chair, but should we take Lori's question before we do? I think we need to take Lori's question before we take the vote, because I didn't see her hand up.
Okay, my hand is up. Okay. Quick question. Who is on this from the commercial fishermen? I haven't had a chance to talk to Jeremiah.
Okay.
So,
as far as HAB members, there is currently we have the chair, who is Chris Vale, and that is it. Jeremiah was present, did not nominate himself for, he did not ask to be on it, and he was given the opportunity to add himself or request to be on the board, and he did not. There needs to be no more than 3. So if you wanted to, we could put you on, but no more than 3.
Okay. No, I'm not volunteering. I'm going to throw somebody else under the bus. They just don't know it yet.
Okay, it's an ad hoc committee, so people who are not board members can be a part of it. So definitely somebody you have, because he said an ad hoc, we have Dana McClish, Ron Reisner, Bruce Marshall. They sound definitely boat-oriented, but I'm fishermen, I think, would be, somebody to add onto that ad hoc committee for sure.
Fine with me. I think it's fine with me.
Okay.
And I think we can leave it up to the chair to decide who to be on the committee from the outside.
Yes.
Okay. Chris, do you have any objections? And then I'll shut up, I promise. Do you have any objections if I put this out to the commercial fishermen of Morro Bay?
No.
Okay. All right.
I think they're important. This is not about kayaks. This is the whole picture. So we need to get representation across the board if possible.
Yeah, what type of services the fishermen need, to service their fleet would be important.
I can tell you one. Right now, our bathrooms are disgusting. Put it out there.
You got that right.
Yeah.
As a fisherman's wife, I get to go to a lot of the bathrooms that we have keys to up and down this coast, and
we don't get a prize.
No, we don't even get on the chart.
You get the wrong one.
Okay, I'm hanging up now.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Lori. Okay. So let's continue with this vote, and then we have we can bring up a couple other things about marine services after that, so we could just finalize this. So can we do the vote now for adding Cal Myers on as a HAB member for the Marine Services Ad Hoc Committee?
Yep.
Lori.
Member Hansen?
Yes.
Member Myers?
Yes.
Member Witkowski?
Yes.
Member French?
Yes.
Member Vale?
Yes.
And your motion passes.
Wonderful. All right, so that passes. I will say that I printed out, and we can get copies for other people. It's not from Ernest Hemingway. It's not that big, but it's a grant that if you look at it and look at what it has, if your ad hoc committee looks at it, there's a possibility for somebody applying for this grant. There's a lot of money going out and unfortunately, because of the computer issue, I left the copy in my office. But there's a lot of grants out there. So as far as looking into fixing bathrooms and other things like that, I would look into it because it looks like a really good way to get some funding for some of the marine services. Okay, so Chris, you were talking about that. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to your discussion?
No, I think that's it for now. We've got to put some heads together.
Okay, well, now you got another one on board, and thank you for that update.
Chris will share some contact information later, and look forward to working with you, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so to my understanding, we can move on to the next business item, correct? Or a public comment for it? How about that? Let's open.
Public comment.
Hi, and how do you spell your name? Hi.
It's Jaialen. It is spelled way different than it's pronounced.
Okay, hi.
There are no raised hands in the queue.
Okay, and how do I say your name again? I'm sorry.
Highlen, like high as in elevation, and then Len, Len, also like a name, I guess.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Highlen.
You're welcome.
Okay. So we'll close public comment for that business item, and we are going to move on to our next business item, which is the Finance and Budget Ad Hoc Committee. And I do believe we never established a chair for that. Am I correct?
I thought you were the chair.
Oh, you thought I was the chair? Okay.
And I quit.
You quit?
Yes.
Okay.
Because Mary jumped in and she started on it.
Okay. Well, I would like to quit too. So maybe we should have Eric do the update, and then after that, ask any of our new members if they would like to be on the budget. I'm still currently on it, but for right now, if anybody else would like to take our places, there's room for 2 or 3. Eric?
Sure. I'll give you the update I've got. It's really just on the budget process for the most part. And all these figures are in your staff report. So the city council approved all the city's budgets back in June, on June 22nd, our operating capital budgets. Our budget is balanced, which is the good news, and with a little bit extra funding that I'll get into, but there's some bad news on the end of that that I'll get into. So our approved budget for next year has $2,150,000 in revenues and $2,054,000 in expenses. So you see there's a little net revenue excess there over expenses of about $95,000, 96, which is great. That was obtained largely or really because the city council for the first time allocated some sales tax revenues to us. Normally we don't get any sales tax revenues at all. So the Measure Q and E fund, so we have 2 sales tax initiatives that have passed. There's a 0.5% Measure Q about a decade ago, and Measure E just passed last year of 1%. And so the council granted us $80,000 in revenues from the Measure E funding to go to our lifeguard program, basically pay for the majority of our lifeguard program, and then $70,000 to go towards disposal, which is basically the bill we pay every year to Morro Bay Garbage to take care of all the trash needs on the waterfront. So $150,000 in ongoing measure money was going to help our budget basically as a revenue source. And then a one-time allocation of $50,000 to go towards our Harbor Patrol boat replacement project, basically buy the fire pump system for that. So that will help tremendously as well. So that $95,000 surplus is a net amount. A couple other amounts that have been pulled out of that budget before that $95,000 is $38,000 goes to our launch ramp fund. In other words, all our revenue we generate from our launch ramp. The excess over expenditures goes over in the launch ramp fund, and that's estimated to be $38,000 this year. And then we did a one-time allocation of $70,000 to our patrol boat project to help build the kitty. We need about $230,000 there, so we got $70,000 going towards that. So after those 2 removals of money from our harbor fund, we still have $95,000 to go to the accumulation fund. And the final part of the good news is this is the last year of our $135,000 a year annual payment for the South T-Pier rebuild that we rebuilt back in the early 90s. So that'll effectively be $135,000 less in expenses next year, which will be great. And now the bad news is that we still have a capital need. If you take our capital needs, basically what needs to be fixed now, and look at the service lives of everything else, pier slips, docks, boats, buildings, all our capital stuff, all our big ticket items, over a 10-year period, if you average it out evenly, we need about $700,000 a year to cover all those costs. That's on what I sort of call the wish list basis. There's in theory you fund depreciation, and at the end of the life of an asset, you've got it funded and you replace it or do what you need to do with it. We've not done that well in the past. We've usually just funded things on an as-needed basis and had extra accumulation funds in the kitty to handle it. The last 10 years, that hasn't been the case. We're starting to get back on the right side of that equation, as I gave you some numbers earlier. But we still have a $700,000 a year need, roughly. So we still have work to do to get back on the right side of that equation. From the capital standpoint, we've got $600,000 going towards the Beach Street slips replacement. We're replacing the south set of slips, the ones closest to the fuel dock. We've got $130,000 coming from the Castle Wind Community Benefit Agreement. Castle Wind entered into an agreement with the city about 3 years ago to where we gave them exclusive use of the power plant outfall tunnel for their wire to come in when they put in their wind farm, assuming they're a successful leaseor. And in exchange for that, they gave us $250,000. We're going to use $130,000 of that for the Beach Street slips. We got $100,000 in grant funding from the Central Coast Joint Cable Fisheries Liaison Committee, and that's courtesy of the Commercial Fishermen's Association, the Morro Bay Commercial Fishermen's Organization. They applied for and got that grant in this last grant round. And then we got $370,000 coming from our accumulation fund, which is basically our piggy bank. So we're planning on funding that, getting going on the engineering, which I've got some engineering done on it the last couple of years. So hopefully we'll get those slips replaced. $230,000 for the harbor patrol vessels I spoke earlier. $60,000, as you heard from Bill LaFay earlier, coming from the Friends, and it sounds like they're still building that war chest, which is great. That'll relieve our other funds of some of their obligations. $50,000 coming from our harbor equipment replacement fund. That's another piggy bank we have for basically boats and vehicles and replacing them over the years. So we're taking $50,000 from that. $50,000 from the Measure E sales tax revenue that I spoke of earlier. That'll go to the fire pump system. And then $70,000 of our excess operating budget revenues that I spoke about earlier as well. So that adds up to $230,000. We got an $85,000 grant from Boating and Waterways to buy that boat from Port St. Louis. We're currently working on getting new engines for it and getting a bunch of structural work done. And so hopefully we'll see that boat later this year. Third capital project on the list is the one we've got every year. It's $10,000 to go towards the commercial fishing ice machine. That machine and that whole facility is under lease to Santa Monica Seafood, or Morro Bay Fish Company, a subsidiary of Santa Monica, and they pay for most of the repair and maintenance, ongoing repair and maintenance on that machine. But we have an obligation of about $10,000 a year to cover what they don't. So we make sure we keep that machine running because it's a pretty important piece of equipment. And then finally, you've got $60,000 to develop a new scope and cost estimate to do a major launch ramp renovation. We had a grant a few years ago from Boating and Waterways to do that. I won't go into the long, sad story of what happened with it, but basically the grant scope and costing estimates that were provided by Boating and Waterways didn't match what really reality was on the ground and what needed to happen, and so we had to give that grant up. So we're going to scope out a new project. Basically, the concrete ramp needs complete replacement. The docks will probably need replacement. ADA accessibility between the ramp and the pay kiosk and the restroom and parking spaces. Drainage, you have to filter drainage, all sorts of different upgrades there. So we'll work up a new project scope and cost estimate for that and submit for a new grant next spring, which is when the grant cycle begins for Boating and Waterways. So if we do all these projects this year, we'll pretty much deplete our accumulation fund down to probably 4, maybe low 5 figures. We don't yet know what the results of last fiscal year were. Which is 2020, 2021. As you know, we were in the depths of COVID when we started this last fiscal year. Biggest impacts were probably in the previous fiscal year with March, April, May, when everything first closed down in early 2020. But things were still relatively shut down, even last summer, although our visitorship, as we know, went kind of through the roof, and it was pretty surprising. We budgeted everything about 25% lower than historically we'd done over previous years, knowing that, at least thinking that COVID was going to hit us pretty hard on the revenue side. We don't quite know where it's going to be yet. We've had a few percent gross reports come in from our tenants that are due right now that have come in a lot higher than we anticipated, which is great news, but we're not done there yet. So got our fingers crossed, but still knocking on wood to see how we make out last year and see what that might put into the coffers. So that's basically my report on the budget.
Okay. We'll go around with questions, but I have one question that's right with what you just said. So weren't those due as of the 31st, the responses for percent gross from all master leaseholders?
They are due in July. We typically get the majority of them in July towards the end. Typically people get them in the last week. We get a few stragglers in early August, so we're still working on the stragglers.
Is there a lot of stragglers or?
No.
No.
I wouldn't say so.
Normal amount. Okay.
Amount.
All right. So let's start off with questions. Member Vale, would you like to begin, or do you have any questions?
I don't have a question. I like to see paper in front of me. But, thanks, Eric, but I have no questions.
All right. Thank you, Member Vale. Member Witkowski, do you have any questions?
I don't think I have any questions. No, I read the report and it seemed to make sense.
Okay. And Member French, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I'm just thrilled. I don't know if this is allowed or not. I'm thrilled that the Beach Street slipser might get some hope, because I'm going to kill myself on that ramp one of these days. But that's okay. So I don't have any questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Member French.
Trying to get the slope out of that ramp and get it a little less steep. As you know, it's like climbing Mount Everest.
Okay. And Member Myers?
Sure. The only question that I have is, does the new boat put you at a net 3 for Harbor Patrol boats then? I think you have 2 now, right?
We have 3 now. 6-4 is our new boat we built in 2013-14. That one's obviously staying. That's the new diesel twin engine boat.
Oh, okay.
6-8 is our other twin engine gas boat we've had since 1984.
Wow.
We weren't going to replace it. We just continue repowering it. It had a major structural failure about 6 or 7 years ago that it's limited in what it can do. So its days are numbered. So it's the one we need to replace. And then our single engine boat that we've still got, it's up on blocks now in the yard. We're going to auction it off here in the not too distant future once we get a few things out of the way. So we're going to go back to a net 2 twin engine boat fleet.
The new one will be diesel as well, then I take it.
Correct. We're putting diesels in that. Same diesels that we've got in the existing boat.
Nice. All right. That was the only question. Well, the only other one would be interesting is the boat ramp, if that's going to be a fairly significant project from what you've described. So that sounds like a 7-figure project.
Yeah, the grant we had previously was, I want to say 1.9 million.
Well,
but again, it says a long story. Boating Waterways scoped it out and cost estimated it, and we applied for that grant amount, but it wasn't accurately done, and we couldn't reconcile it with Boating and Waterways, so we just had to give up the grant and start over.
Gotcha. But there's a high degree of probability that you get that grant money when you go back again.
Yeah, it may take a year or 2 to get it,
okay,
depending on what the state's and the department's funding situation is. But they've most of the boat ramps up and down the California coast, they've all been boating and waterways funded in one form or another.
Okay. All right. Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, Mary.
Sorry, I actually thought of one. So in your report, when you said like if we do these projects completely, we're gonna deplete it down to 4 figures. Is that like something that you're planning on and like comfortable with, or is there like a hard limit that you're gonna set on how low you get it? So that like, are there other sources for emergency type funding?
Not with the harbor fund. Am I comfortable with that? No. The city does have a reserve policy. The general fund currently meets that reserve. We depleted it in COVID, but I think with the revenues reimbursements we're getting back from the federal government and some of the aid we're getting from the federal government, we should be able to get that emergency reserve back up to where it should be. The general fund emergency reserve, I think, is, I want to say 27% or something. The harbor fund policy emergency reserve, it's emergency reserve or just a general reserve, I think is 25% of our operating budget. So, $2 million budget, that's what, $500,000. We want to try and get back in the coffer. So no, we're not comfortable with that at all. I mean, if we have some kind of major disaster, we're going to have to lean on the general fund's reserves to fix things or do what we need to do if that comes about. Like I said, this budget year we're in now, due in large part to the Measure E funding, the new sales tax initiative, and that lease or that loan being the last year of payments on that. We start to get some breathing room, and we're looking like we'll start putting $100,000 to $200,000 a year back into the bank. So it's going to take us a while to get back there. We still need to do more. We're not done yet. Can't sit back on our laurels, but things are starting to finally look like we're getting back on track.
I mean, but if you're spending like maintenance costs of $700K a year, and you're having like, so am I understanding this correctly that you'll have like $700K in maintenance, like ongoing maintenance costs for the next 10 years, and you'll be having like $200K left over, so you're still missing out on like $500K in revenue to get where you want to go every year?
No, and I guess maybe that's the way I conveyed it probably wasn't the best. The 700 is, you take our capital list of all of our capital assets, piers, slips, our office, our restrooms, the launch ramp, the public docks, all of our capital assets. Yeah. And then our capital equipment, our boats, our vehicles. Well, really just boats and vehicles are our capital equipment, mostly boats. Vehicles aren't so capital, but they fit into that category. And then the major maintenance you've got to do, like a pier, for instance, or 2 T-piers, you never really replace. I mean, we replaced the South T-pier because it burned down, but piers you don't normally just go in every 30 or 40 or 50 years and replace. Every roughly 15 to 20 years, you'll go in and do a major maintenance cycle and spend $1 million and go replace a bunch of stuff. And then over time, it eventually gets replaced, but you don't do it all at once typically. Yeah. So in those 3 categories, but slips, like the slips Lori was talking about, the Beach Street slips, at some point you just go in and replace them. You can't keep repairing them, but you need to throw major amounts of money in them occasionally and do some upgrades. So it's those big costs that if you took all those and you looked at, okay, our slips and this is on basically a condition basis, the stuff we know we need to do now, and then on stuff we know is coming up in the future, like Dune Street slips, for instance. Those are the ones between Stack's Wine Bar and House of Juju restaurant. They were built in 95, 96, 97. Those wooden slips typically have a 30, 35-year life, maybe 40 if you push them far. And so if you project out 35 years from 96, we know that in 2030, whatever that is, we're going to have a $3 million liability to do there that we haven't funded for. So if you add all those things up and add up on the timeline when they should be replaced per their typical industry lives, you add up to $700,000. It's not saying, no, we're going to spend $700K every year. We can't. We don't have it. We're doing it on a as the wheel falls off basis right now and just getting the worst of it as we can as money is available. the hope is that we start building up the war, keep those things going, keep putting the wheels back on, but then start building up a war chest. You know, we've adjusted our fee schedule. We've done a lot of things the last few years, and be able to start putting money in the bank to start meeting that $700,000 a year.
Yeah, but it is $700K a year ideally of maintenance costs. Because I mean, if you're not spending what you want to be spending to like maintain those things, then like potentially it's going to end up costing you more, right? If you're not doing incremental maintenance. So it is like ideally like that target is you've kind of like costed it out, and it's about $700K a year though for the whole body.
Yeah, and over 10 years. And so, but what that also looks at is, you know, our Beach Street slips and our launch ramp slips were all replaced at about the same time. So there's our harbor office is in there, which is a big cost. It needs to be replaced. That's a one-time, it'll last 50 years. So there's some big ticket items that are just kind of come and due over the next 5 to 10 years. They won't come due for another, 20 to 30 years after that. So once we get past those, I think that $700K will come down. It should. But there's just there's a bunch of stuff that was done in the early 90s that is now going to start catching back up to us. So yeah, the 700, that number should come down over time. And if we can get grants, like we did for the Harbor Patrol boat and other things, which already have brought things down, and the launch ramp, those sort of things, that'll start bringing those numbers down if we can get some additional funding for those. But you're right, your observation is correct. It does kind of paint not quite the most accurate picture when it's just you throw that number out there.
No, I mean, I think it's important to also say yes, you can defer them, but you're deferring maintenance, which potentially could cost you more. One, it might become unsafe. It might mean that you have to replace more than you originally would have had to if you were just doing the incremental maintenance.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. So
public comment, Therese?
Well, no, I have a question, and then should we do public comment or talk about the members before we talk about public comment?
Typically, we should do public comment after questions, after I go through my spiel, and then we got any questions. So
okay, all right. Well, then let me do my questions. So you said that you haven't gotten percent growth, so that answers my question with that one. But did we before do a prioritizing, or I know that we've looked at all the things that need to get maintained or money needs to go towards as far as saving for the harbor fund. Did we in past meetings prioritize or list all of the things that need to get worked on?
The committee was instrumental in helping with that list, compile it, work on estimates, and look at the priorities and concur with staff and come up with what we think is what the priorities are. And we've brought those to the Harbor Advisory Board in the past. It hasn't changed really in the last couple of years. It's the same priorities right now. But we do, with the new board and some new members, we'll look at that list again and continue to refine it. Ron, I know, has been helping me a lot with cost estimating on some stuff. So him being involved has been great. So we'll continue to work on them, and the committee will keep working on it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just as far as that goes, if when the time for grants comes up again, if we can show it what it is that still needs to get worked on and everything, I think that would be helpful. So that concludes my questions, and then I'll open it for public comment.
There are no raised hands in the queue.
Okay. All right. With that, we will talk about members on the Finance Budget Committee. And it's been a while. We took a month off, and I turned 49. So I think maybe some of my brain cells are not there anymore. But did we, the last meeting, Mary, did we add you on to the Budget Committee?
I honestly don't remember.
Okay, well then maybe it's not.
But I'm really interested in it if we did it.
All right, I don't remember Chris quitting, and I don't actually want to quit. I just feel that Cal and Mary, you guys would be great additions to this board, or committee. So with that, I would. Anybody want to nominate anybody else to be on the finance ad hoc committee?
Well, I would nominate Mary, and I thought we certainly talked about it at the June meeting. So I would nominate Mary to the finance board.
Okay, and I will second that. And so, can we do it in one motion? I'm gonna. Oh wait, it's already on the table, and I already seconded. Okay, Lori, you wanna?
Does Mary want to do it?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm interested.
Okay.
Eric, do you have a chance to say you don't want me in your office asking me questions all the time?
I'll say he does not have that.
We'll take all the volunteers we can get.
Okay, I can call for a vote. Member Hansen?
Yes.
Member Myers?
Yes.
Member Witkowski?
Yes.
Member French?
Yes.
Member Bale?
Yes.
And your motion passes.
All right, wonderful. Okay, and so knowing that my conversation that I've had with Cal and his background, I would like to nominate him as well to be on this committee. Yes. Anybody want to second that?
I'll second
it. I'll withdraw my second.
Okay. Well, we'll go with Mary seconding on that. And Cal, are you in agreement that you want to be a part of this?
Yes, I would be happy to help.
Okay, awesome.
I do a lot of budget stuff at work, so it's just sort of second nature.
Right on. And I will stay on. So we have 3 right now. And once you guys meet and get up to speed, we'll talk about a chair for this. I don't think we have one at this time. Somebody said that they think it's me, but I don't know. Lori, you can tell me. But Lori, can you do a vote for, or did we get yeah, we got a second. So Lori, can you do a vote for?
Sure. Member Hansen?
Yes.
Member Myers?
Yes.
Member Witkowski?
Yes.
Member French?
Yes.
Member Vale?
Yes.
And your motion passes.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Okay, so with that, we've already had public comment, and and you guys can meet. Again, I'd like to reiterate that this is an ad hoc committee, so you can bring outside people onto it once you meet and you decide to bring those on. But we will go to our next business item, which is the goals and objectives setting process. And Eric, would you like to do the update? Please do the update.
Sure. So at the June Harbor Advisory Board meeting, we considered input into the upcoming goals setting session. Council typically or historically will set the goals in the springtime, kind of concurrent with budgeting, and then set its goals before it establishes the budget because it budgets against the goals, right? Well, due to COVID and staffing issues with folks moving on, we elected to not do the goal setting session yet. We're going to start it up, I think, in September with the council. We've been taking it to advisory bodies this summer to get input. And so we're a little off kilter in terms of the normal process, but we're going to get back on. We'll have a goal setting meeting in the upcoming weeks. Keep an eye out on the city council calendar for that, some stakeholder meetings. And then the council will have official session and determine what the goals are going to be. And then, your work plan, the Harbor Advisory Board's work plan, mostly what the HAB is supposed to be working on is council goals. And so let's say the council, we've got 4 goals now. I suspect they're probably not going to largely change. It's financial sustainability, it's the wharf project, it's communications, and it's infrastructure. I don't think those are going to change, but the objectives under the goals probably will. There'll be some new objectives in there, and that's where really the HAB comes in to play, and that how can the HAB help the council implement the goals and objectives. And so that's where we identify, the work plan for the HAB once the goals get established. So as is always the case, the different advisory bodies are asked for their input into the goals and for the council to consider what the advisory bodies want to do. And so that's what we're doing tonight. So this is a continuation of what we did in June. So in June, we took our existing list of goals and goal options. I think there was maybe 8 or 9 and whittled it down to 6. So the ones we still want to pursue, and those are on your staff report tonight. The first one is review revenue enhancement options, and we've done a bunch of different things over the last 4 or 5 years. One was RVs, which we've implemented as a pilot program. We looked at paid parking. We've looked at movies at the Rock. We've looked at a bunch of different stuff. So you had consensus last meeting to continue on with revenue enhancing options or ideas, revenue generating ideas. Number 2, review of parking management options. The city did a parking demand study last year and early this year, the results of which are out, and we're going to be bringing that to the city council, I believe, in September to see if we want to look at paid parking or other parking options. So that may very well carry into some work plans for us. So we left that on the list. Number 3 was a general plan, local coastal program, and zoning code update. The city's getting towards the end of the general plan and local coastal program update. We've been working for 3 or 4 years on it through a number of consultants. It's gone to the Coastal Commission back and forth. It's set to be approved by the Coastal Commission, I think, in September. The GPLCP and the GP and LCP are sort of the 30,000-foot overview of how the city wants to be and how it sees itself in the future. And then the master plans are sort of the implementation strategies for the general plan and the local coastal program. So you elected to leave that on your list as something that we want to have input to. We as a board did have some input into the GPLCP process a couple of years ago now, mainly in the working waterfront realm. In Measure D, we convened the subcommittee of the Harbor Advisory Board and Planning Commission, where we got together and made some recommendations regarding working waterfront and Measure D language into those 2 documents, and then had joint meetings of those 2 bodies and forwarded that information and input into the GPLCP update process. So we want to stay involved with that as it moves forward. Number 4 in there is the boatyard and marine services. We want to keep that on the list of things to consider. We talked about that a little bit earlier on the committee, so we'll keep that on the list. Number 5 on the list was pursuit of offshore wind power generation development. There was consensus at the June meeting to bring this back and maybe change the language a little bit. Pursuit, I think, was questioned. Is that the right word? Maybe there's a different word that can go along with that I'll get into a little bit later, so we'll discuss that a little bit later. And then number 6 was the Market Street Plaza redevelopment, and that is the big development where the chessboard is down on the waterfront, and the large parking lot, paved parking lot right to the south of that. That lot and the hillside and what used to be D'Estacio's restaurant on the side of the hill, that big white building that spans the hill, and the parking lot behind that on the other side of I think Market Street. That's all one big city property, and we're trying to master plan that into a big redevelopment of mixed retail, hotel, restaurant use. We've taken a couple proposals from a couple big developers right now the city's looking at. So we want to still have a part in that because obviously it's not necessarily right on the waterfront or bay, but it's right across the street. And so we're going to have some input on that. So that's Market Street Plaza. And then at the June meeting last month, or that month and a half ago, it was brought up at the end, do we want to consider rock master planning as a future goal item? And so the consensus out of the June meeting was to bring that back in August for discussion. So my recommendations to the Harbor Advisory Board tonight under discussion are item A, discuss item 5 above, the offshore wind one. What kind of language do we want to use? We're we're leaving offshore wind on the list of things to consider for goal development. But do we want to use a different word than pursue? And the suggestions that were put out there in June were facilitate, support, play a role, and advise on harbor impacts. So I guess let's take these one at a time, or why don't we just take these one at a time? Any questions? Actually, you know what? I'm going to change my mind. Sorry. I'm going to go through all three. Then let's go through questions. Then we'll see if we got any public comment, and then we can get into the meat and discussion of it. Okay. So that's item A. Item B, which is on the next page of your staff report, the rock master planning. Do we want to make that as something we want to recommend the council take on as a goal? I spoke to Scott Graham, the community development director, today about how the master planning process works, and basically the general plan local coastal program, like I say, are the 30,000 foot overviews of what we want to look like and how we want to be and what we want to do in the future. The city's various master plans, and there's probably 4 or 5 of them, spell out the nuts and bolts, the real where the rubber hits the road. It gives you the details of how you implement. They're basically implementation plans to get to the goals you want to get to in the general plan. So right now, the rock fits within I have it. There it is. The 1980-something waterfront master plan. It's still going to be in the new master plan, the new waterfront master plan, but the waterfront master plan in and of itself is going to be a very costly endeavor for the city to undertake updating. It's going to be like the general plan local coastal program. We're going to probably have to get some grant money to redo that whole plan. Could rock master planning be a subset done before the waterfront master plan? Absolutely. I think speaking to the community development director today, the waterfront master plan could be broken up into more bite-sized chunks, and maybe the rock master plan is one of those chunks. So I guess we'll have discussion and see if we want to recommend the council do that, or however you want to look at that. And then item C on the list is wrapping all this up into a package, items 1 through 6, the rock master planning thing, if we want to add that, the offshore wind language. How do we want to wrap that up in the package, and what do we want to recommend to the council as our set of items we want to consider for goals? So that is it. So like I said, the process-wise, I think we're going to have some stakeholder meetings, some town hall meetings in September to start taking input from the community. I think we're going to have some facilitators help the city through that, and then we'll start bringing things to the council. I think whatever we do as a Harbor Advisory Board, we'll put in a memo from the HAB chair to the council. We also have our liaison that will carry things forward. So that's kind of how the process will work. And we probably should have goals hopefully completed by late fall, mid to late fall, October-ish maybe. So questions?
All right. I don't see anybody's hand up, and I don't hear anybody. So
this is Cal. I just have a couple questions. You want to step through them, just A, B, and C, because they're kind of A seems like the easiest to tackle first.
Yep.
This is the language change. My suggestion is, again, the pursue I don't like either. But I mean, if I put my HAB hat on, although it's new, my concern, looking at the plan that Ella put up, is to make sure that this doesn't, that we get some benefits out of it, but also that it doesn't change the character of Morro Bay, right? So if they want to put it in a dock and have more boats and maybe use it for a boatyard, that's great. But I think it's protecting the interest of the waterfront, or keeping something that we want that to go. We don't want to we're not chasing it, but we want to make sure that when it lands here in a way that benefits Morro Bay. It doesn't really help you with the language, but I think softening it too is just to make sure that Morro Bay's interests are considered with the wind energy project. Does that make sense, Eric?
Yeah, it makes sense. So I'm gonna not spin another yarn, but give you some more information.
Sure.
Because I don't know how much you know of Castle Wind and our relationship. So Ella and Castle came to us about 5 years ago.
Sure.
we're interested in building offshore wind.
Yep.
The wire is going to come to Morro Bay. We know there's issues. We want to engage with you as a community, and here we are.
Yep.
They've been great partners. They kind of walked us through the BOEM leasing process and how it works. We as a city took a position that we see this as a benefit to the city in the future. The wire is going to come ashore here if it's built, because the transmission is sort of the limiting factor, and we have the transmission.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, and especially with all the phone cables between us and Diablo.
Yeah, and so we entered in an agreement with Castle Wind and said, we're going to support you in your efforts to work your way through the leasing process. And if you're a successful leaseor from BOEM, we will lease you the tunnel that the old water outfall used to go through to run your cable back into. We'll give you exclusive right to that. And there's some other things in the benefit. They paid us, I think I told you earlier, $250,000 cash. And we agreed to help them with the governmental affairs part. We go back to Washington, D.C. every year to pursue dredging funding and the Corps of Engineers, but we also go and go to the different regulatory agencies and advocate for, to BOEM and others for offshore wind. And we also do community outreach.
Gotcha. So we need to be more of a partnership language than protecting our interests. Then,
well, we're both. I mean, obviously, we are partners with them through the community benefits agreement. So that's why I wanted to give you that background.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
The city, obviously, what we wanted to see was, to be honest, revenues coming from a lease of the wire coming through, but also the activity.
Yeah.
Potential crew boats and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Knowing this harbor, as you heard from Hala earlier, unless somebody comes in and spends billions of dollars completely changing this harbor, it's not big enough to build.
Yeah, they have to build it in Seattle and float it down here.
We don't have the space for it. So, but we'd like, the wire's going to come here. The operations center is going to come here. We'd like to see the crew boats going in and out of here and buying fuel and getting work done and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, we are partnered with them, but we're also going to protect our interests. So, I think there's sort of both parts of it there. So, just kind of want to flavor that a little bit.
Yeah, no, thank you. I don't know, anybody else have comments on A?
Anybody else?
I don't know. I keep looking at these words, and I like the idea of playing a role and advise on harbor impacts. I think that is our position. Rather than just going, we're all for it 100% and support you, it just tones it down a little bit. We, in a sense, could even be sort of like play a role in being a watchdog for how this goes in the harbor. Just my thought.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. It's like there's still so much up in the air, as Ada or as she was saying. And so to me, it seems like a little bit early to be all in. It seems like there's still a lot of planning and discussions and like negotiation left.
There's a huge amount of public process that'll happen through the permitting, through Coastal Commission and federal government, NEPA and CEQA, and there's a lot of process that's still yet to occur.
Okay, so trying to pick out the word that best describes, I would say, from what I understand from the city council's view of us being, somebody that advises them, that as a city, they're wanting to move forward and have this happen. And so as their advisory board, facilitating would be a good term based on the fact that, there's going to be positive and negatives as more information comes in. Different groups from the city are going to feel differently. And so possibly with our public outreach, we can facilitate the wind energy staying in Morro Bay or being a part of it, which brings in money by, discussing with our different groups and being in the know to explain how it would work. And then also finding the negative things and then bringing them forward to the city council. So, I don't know, I kind of like facilitate and advise on harbor impacts.
Exactly.
So because advise on harbor impacts could be positive or negative. So what I'm saying is that one side, the city council, as far as we know, wants to move forward with this. That's why they were pursuing it. But we also need to go in it knowing that there's going to be some negatives and there's going to be some positives. And as an advisory board, we can tell them all of those. So.
Do we need a motion on this, or we just? Making a decision.
Okay, so we have 2 suggestions so far. Does anybody else? We've been talking about it. Does anybody else have a suggestion? Eric threw out facilitate, support, play a role, advise on our harbor impacts. You could pick one of those and we can, vote on them. Or does anybody have another term that they think encapsulates both of those? Or do we like the idea of taking to either Chris's idea or mine of using facilitate and advise?
I would go, I'm sorry, hands up.
Go for it, Chris.
I would go equally with facilitate, as it's somewhat neutral, and advise on harbor impacts, which implies no, that's too much, or yes, more, advise on the impacts. That's where I would go. So I agree with you.
All right, thank you. All right, Mary, is there one member Witkowski? Is there a phrase that you like that you prefer than pursuit?
No. Oh, I like facilitate and advise on harbor impacts.
Okay. Okay. Member Lori French. Okay. I'm here. Okay, there you go.
Sorry. Facilitate and advise. Yeah.
Okay, so you like that one too. And Cal, what do you think?
I believe after the explanation that Eric provided, I like what Chris said. So yeah, I'm in.
Okay. All right. So does anybody want to make a motion to make the new wording?
Do we have to do the public stuff next?
You know what
I don't think so.
Which probably my suggestion is we've got consensus on this. Let's go to the Rock Master Plan one, because that's an open-ended one, and have the same discussion, and then look at the package, and probably take public comment at that point.
Okay.
If there is any, and then you can look at how you want to send the package to the council and make it in one
thing. Okay. So let's go ahead. It sounds good. Sounds like we're in consensus on that. So B, discuss whether to recommend Rock Master Planning. And I think that maybe we can look at this in the way of more saying, could we make this a goal based on what, Eric, you just found out with Scott Graham, that we can suggest it as a portion of the whole of the Waterfront Master Plan. So I think that now knowing that it's not just the Rock Master Plan, because that's why I brought it up, is because it was just going to cover that basis. Can we look at it from that perspective? Does everybody want to add putting into the goals that we work on the Waterfront Master Plan sub area of the Rock? Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah, I don't like the idea of having the Rock separate from the waterfront, because to me it's all one thing.
Yeah.
I guess, Eric, the only concern I would have is I know there's some Indian tribal input or something along those lines, Native American. Would that, if we include that, if we separate those two, does that insulate the waterfront from that, or do you need any bleed over?
I don't think so. There's 2 tribes that have an interest in the Rock. It's sacred ground to them. The Slinnians and the Chumash. I think they're going to have input in like any public body or any group of people, they can provide input on anything that the city does.
Gotcha.
Based on their sacred grounds and their heritage and everything else. The rock is just extra special to them because it's really sacred ground to them. So the rock is gonna pull them in no matter what. Other waterfront stuff, I don't know if they choose to comment on that. Most of the waterfront is on fill, so it's not hard ground that they were on for the most part. Right. But they still got, the power plant is full of tribal stuff. So
yeah,
they're just everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for combining it. Just sounds like that would be simpler to manage. But I just wanted to make sure that we didn't cause any grief on tying up the waterfront plan because of the tribal piece of it. It sounds the answer is no.
No, I don't think so. What's the sticky point on the larger waterfront master plan is going to be cost.
Yeah.
That's going to be a several $100,000 process, and I don't know when we're going to have the funding for that. That may come in a while, where if we want to do the rock part first, it's a viable way of doing it and breaking it up, like I said earlier, into little bites. So I guess that's maybe the decision. One, do we want the rock master planning to occur in some shape or form? And then number two, well, how? Just include it in the waterfront master plan, and whenever that happens, and recommend that waterfront master plan moves soon or first in the queue after the GPLCP, or do we want to take the rock as a bite out of the waterfront master plan and do it ahead of time, which would be less expensive and might be something achievable?
Yeah, Sharice, I was actually thinking about that since the last meeting, and I was wondering, maybe there's at Cal Poly, they have masters of city planning and stuff, and I feel like the rock is pretty special. Have we looked into maybe reaching out to professors who run the master planning curriculum at Cal Poly and saying hey, we want to do a rock master's plan. Do you want to take it on and have your master's students do visions, anything like that?
Absolutely. It's one of the things that kind of made me want to do something like this, just because there's so many things that the schools can work with us synergistically with, and I mean, just everything that the Rock has to offer, from recreation, from playgrounds to anyway. Yes, absolutely. In the outreach groups, that would be a great way for us to approach them and get them on board too, to help in some way, shape, or form. Chris, you had a question?
Yeah, I've been, I forgot to mention it earlier, I don't know him, and maybe somebody else does. The assistant professor or lecturer at Cal Poly by the name of Sean Green has been chasing me on just this sort of stuff. He wants to establish this as yet undiscussed liaison stuff with Cal Poly. And right now I've given him 3 times we could meet, and I expect to meet with him. As I say, I don't know him. But that might be an avenue to pursue as well, if he's trying to bring Cal Poly talent to us.
He actually brought Cal Poly to my business. Couple of the students that he had did a study for us for Great American Fish Company and for Under the Sea Gallery. So he is a great help, and he did give us a big list with even different ideas of things to do, and I handed that off to Cal so he could look into that and get some connections that way and outreach. So yeah.
If you elect to move rock master planning in some way, shape, or form forward, you can maybe put a caveat on that, is consider assistance from Cal Poly, professors and interns and stuff.
Okay. And within the letter that we're talking about, or just...
Yeah, well, say we want to recommend rock master planning in some shape or form. We could say, and pursue opportunities at Cal Poly for
expertise.
Expertise and senior project kind of stuff.
Okay, pursue Cal Poly. Yes, Chris?
Cal, has Sean Green been in touch with you?
No.
Okay. Well,
I just gave him the sheet.
Yeah, I got the list. I still have it. I haven't done anything with it. I wanted to make sure that I was all official and onboarded and whatnot. So it sounds like I'm starting to get some green lights and some action items.
Yeah, I think you're in trouble now.
Exactly.
Okay. So I think the consensus on this is that, yes, we move forward. And Eric, can you help me out with the wording? Because I think I'm going to be making the motion for this at the end of it.
Yes, we still got, Lori's got her hand up.
Lori? Oh, Lori. She usually just says, oh, wait, Lori
French.
Lori French, not Lori.
Yeah. Remember French? She may have just accidentally hit it. Looks like she took it down.
Okay.
No,
all right.
My internet went down. I'm sorry. No, I was going to say I'm all for the Cal Poly thing. And totally self-serving. I have a son who's getting out of commercial fishing and going back to city and master planning for his master's next month.
It'll be warmer.
We've got an inside man.
Nice.
So, and I mean, he's lived here his entire life. So,
that's awesome. Congratulations. Yeah. Okay. So, Eric, how are we going to say this? So, our request is to go goals for waterfront master plan, concentrating.
Well, do you want to break the rock part, which would probably include Coleman, from Coleman on out to the rock and that direction? Do you want to break that out as a subset of the waterfront master plan to be looked at prior to the larger waterfront master plan? Because it certainly could be. I guess that's the question. Or,
so far I wrote down have work on waterfront master plan, concentrating on the recreational portion. Because that, or do you want me to get into geographical Coleman to Tascadero?
No, the rock in the existing
to the bridge
waterfront master plan, it basically takes the rock from Coleman on out and then over to the creek is sort of the rock zone that gets looked at.
Okay. So rock zone in quotes, I guess. I just don't know what the verbiage is for the city if we're going to actually write this, and I want to motion it correctly. So anyway, for this amount, I know what our second comment is. So we have a third area, which is discuss how to, well, now we're talking about that. Discuss how to present all the recommended goal items to the council as a package and as an additional information the HAB wishes to convey on or about these items. And I think we talked about making it a letter that you and I, Eric, and the chair put together to submit, and then we would bring that back to the HAB for them to read and just say yes or no at the next meeting.
I don't think we need to bring it back. I'd say let's get a consensus and vote on what we want to do, and then
just do it.
Yeah, they'll typically in the past the laws of letter conveys a consensus of what was voted.
Okay, it's not going to be greatly different. It's not going to totally be different than what it is that we've just agreed on. It's these 6 issues, and okay. So, any questions? Any more questions before we go to public comment on this? By anyone on the board? No, I don't see any hands and I don't see anybody. Okay, so I'm going to open this up for public comment. Then we will come back and vote on it. Correct? Okay. So do we have anyone who would like to make a public comment at this time?
We have no raised hands in the queue.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so would anybody else like to tackle this motion, or do they want me to do it? No hands. Yeah.
We're on a roll. Keep going.
I don't think so. All right, let's get through this. Okay, so as far as the wording, so we're going to accept 1, review of revenue enhancement options. 2, review of parking management options. 3, general plan, local coastal program and zoning code update. 4, boatyard/marine services. 5, facilitate and advise on harbor impacts of offshore wind power generation development. And 6, Market Street Plaza redevelopment. And 7th will be work on waterfront master plan, concentrating on the recreational portion known as the Rock Zone, and pursue Cal Poly for assistance.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'll make that a motion, what I just said, which is the 7 things that we agree on all of those 7 items as stated.
I'll second it.
I'll motion to accept those as stated. Chris, you second?
I did.
Okay.
I do.
Lori?
Yes.
Roll call, I guess? Or, yeah. Don't need to ask anybody.
Member Hanson?
Yes.
Member Myers?
Yes.
Member Witkowski?
Yes.
Member French?
Yes.
And Member Vale?
Yes.
Okay, your motion passes.
You muted, Therese. Yay.
You didn't hear all that? Okay. Okay, so we will move on to our last item, which is B4, Harbor Advisory Board Member Public Engagement Outreach Assignments. It is listed for all of us, and I'm going to run down the list. We have Member Dowdy, who's not here right now, Member O'Brien, which will be Lori French tonight. Did you happen to know of these outreach groups and or get in touch with any of them? Member French.
Are you asking?
Yes. Did you know about any of them? And if so, did you have any outreach with any of these groups?
I did not know, and I've had outreach, but not about that.
Okay. Well, I will tell you that the Morro Bay Harbor, Friends of Morro Bay Harbor Department did a wonderful presentation. So that was a good outreach for the fishing part of our hab. Anyway, as it stated here, it's Rotary and Lions Clubs and the City of Morro Bay Recreational Department and Friends of the Morro Bay Harbor Department. So if I think he's gonna be out in the water for a while. Are you planning on being at our next meeting, the alternate?
September he should be coming home, but I'll see if I can reach him by sat phone and see if I can get some info on what's going on.
Okay, well, if you are here next time, those are the other ones. If you ever want to just have a chat and see what's going on with those groups and how the harbor can serve them or vice versa. So if they have anything questions. Okay, awesome. All right, so running down to the next one, we have Member Myson, who's not here, and we have Member Vale. So, Chris, would you like to let us know if you have any updates as far as outreach?
I have the following. I've spoken to Quota International and will be speaking to their meeting, one of their meetings, when they get settled down about having in-person meetings. I have spoken to Ron about the sailing club and the youth sailing program, which he's got a lot to do with. And again, it's just, picking a time and place. And I have no foggy idea how I got put on the water quality board at all. And no, I haven't talked to anybody. So it's all the same thing. You're trying to have meetings with people, they're not meeting. This Zoom stuff is the Zoom stuff. Having a lot of fun, but it's not the same as an in-person meeting. So some of this hanging out down at the yacht club lawn and some other things are in the pipe, but they haven't happened yet.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for the update. Sorry that, people are going to start meeting sooner, but maybe not that soon with current events. Okay. So Member Witkowski, do you have any items?
Yeah, I have some updates. Let me just pull up my list of people. So the first is California State Park. So I've been in touch with someone from the state park, and they've been really focused on their museum reopening. They actually had like a reopening party tonight that she invited me to, but it was like 4 to 7. So some overlap. But I shared the like questions for discussion with them. And she's held like a discussion within her staff about them. And we have time set up next Wednesday to review the responses. And so far, she's just said that they came up with a bunch of ideas for collaborations. So it sounds promising. And then the other update is I received feedback from the commander of the Coast Guard Auxiliary. So I have notes from him on his feedback. Should I just go through that? Okay, so the favorite thing about Morro Bay Harbor, they loved the harbor walkway both in town along the breakwater. They said they're world class for tourists and local usage. They think the Strand Beach is awesome. It serves so many different activities, families, and also people who enjoy long walks. He gave a shout out to the Harbor Patrol and said the Harbor Patrol does an amazing job of ensuring safe boating is the norm in Morro Bay. For the least favorite thing about Morro Bay Harbor, waterfront or beach, the feedback was the boat launch area parking is far too limited when the fish are running. And the other item of feedback was that the crosswalks should be better marked, and we should consider restricting the speed limit to 15 miles per hour. On discussing events, activities on the Morro Bay Harbor waterfront that they think would increase enjoyment, the feedback was that in comparison with Avila Beach, it seems like Morro Bay has less festivals. And then the other item of feedback was that better marked public bathrooms also seems to be an issue. There was no opinion on post-pandemic things for what they see as their organization's role as relating to the harbor. They said our mission is to support the Coast Guard and public boating safety. Our role is to be a public presence at all events where we can interact with the boating community and promote our mission. And then for what's your organization's position or input on the Harbor Department's various services, he said the Morro Bay Harbor Patrol is staffed by an incredibly dedicated group of employees and managers, and we look forward to supporting them in any way that would be beneficial, including putting on safety workshops for any of your new permanent or summer staff. So that was the feedback from the Coast Guard Auxiliary. And then also for extra credit, because I didn't realize that the Coast Guard Auxiliary was separate from the actual Coast Guard, I've just been discussing a little bit of the questions with the ops officer for the Coast Guard unit. And so I'm actually going to be meeting with them soon to discuss also.
That's awesome. That's good. It's neat to get some of their answers back that you don't expect. So, and accolades are always nice too. All All right, awesome. Okay, member Cal Myers, I know you just started, but I'm still going to ask you, did you have any groups that you think that are not represented by any of the members that we have right now that you are interested in taking on as far as your outreach? And have you contacted anybody?
Not at this point. I haven't reached out to anybody. I've looked at the list. I don't have a favorite off the top of my head, but we'll definitely dig deeper into that for the next meeting. If I want to contact any of those people, I don't need permission or anything like that. I was just, okay.
No, I'm just trying to grab as many different perspectives as we can of people who are affected or can affect the harbor. So, all
right, yeah, I'll be all over that then. I just wasn't sure if I had the thumbs up, and apparently I did and didn't know it. So, all right. I'm in.
Okay.
Data scared me with that whole Brown Act stuff, so I was nervous.
Oh, yeah. No, that's just talking with each other.
Yeah, I know.
We're not on video. Okay. So that leaves me. So my group is the Chamber. So I've been working with them really closely. I don't have anything to add from them right now. I even had lunch with Erica a couple of days ago, and I gave her the same kind of questions, and she just, more or less says, keep the outreach alive. I will say that the GAC amazes me at how much they get accomplished and how important their advice is to the council, and I would love for us to be movers and shakers like they are. I'm pretty impressed by that group and the amount of research that they do and how well they're heard. Let me see what else. Embarcadero leaseholders, they're going to be meeting on August 17th. I have met with them between this period of time, but I don't really have any additions. Nobody responded specifically to our list, so I'll keep bringing that up. But it is going to be a conversation about parking, where Scott Collins is going to come and talk to the master leaseholders. So it'll be interesting to get their perspective on the parking. And local schools. I did meet before they ended last year, and one of the things that I mentioned at the last at one of the meetings before, and that is for boating safety. They thought it would be a really good way to get the schools involved to offer a poster contest. So I know that the Harbor Department runs the boating safety day or weekend, and we didn't do much. I don't know, Eric or Laura, did you guys do a whole bunch for this last time? Did you get out and do the festivities for boating safety?
This last spring we didn't get super involved with stuff. A little short on staff, so we just supported auxiliary and Coast Guard in their efforts.
Okay, and then when does that usually? What's the date for boating safety weekend?
It's in the springtime.
Okay.
It's we have a National Safe Boating Day, and then there's usually a National Safe Boating Week.
Okay. Well, one of their things is that we work with them to have a contest for them to do the poster for the event. And I thought that would be a great way to get the kids excited about the boating. And it doesn't really cost us anything. Just, hey, here's the thing. It needs to say this or represent this. And then the winner gets some sort of prize, but most of all, the notoriety and a cute little medal or something. So that's it from me. Does anybody have any questions of anyone else?
I had one other just like kind of random update that we hadn't gotten to.
Okay.
Maybe I was like supposed to say it in the beginning, but I like just thought we would touch on it. One of the things that we had talked about was doing a mural downtown. Instagrammable Instagrammable mural to like drive traffic to the waterfront. And I reached out to some people I know at City of Slow about like the process for this super Instagrammable mural that they just had installed kind of near the parking structure. I just was learning about like it actually cost them $18,000. And they have like a public art fund with like this whole massive process about doing public art. And anyway, so extremely expensive, but also it just made me curious to figure out like what we have as far as potential funds for public art in Morro Bay.
Eric, you know any answers to that?
I don't know about any funds dedicated specifically. There's, the Morro Bay Art Association, I think, has a public art arm. I know Neil Farrell's involved with it. I don't know how much money they have. I'm sure they're donation based.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I'll just like reach out to them just to find out more. I know my daughter's been taking classes there this summer, so I know a few people over there. But
I mean, it's okay to add more people onto your outreach group. It's all good. They don't all have to fill out the questionnaire, but getting their voice heard and getting their is always good, no matter who they are. So yeah, you don't have to check with anybody. So I left my things on how to do proper procedure. We're at the end of our day, and so I believe I just get to say if there's any more questions. No, otherwise, thank you.
You're not done yet.
I'm not. Okay.
Any future agenda items?
Oh, that's what it is. See, I didn't see that on my paper. It was ended. Okay. But anybody, I know I had a future agenda item that I want. Okay. Anyway, anybody have any future agenda items that they would like to include for possible future?
Yeah, I will have by then had my a few more outreach discussion. So if we could have that as an agenda item again, that would be great.
Okay. So you liked having the outreach as an agenda item?
Yeah.
On a monthly basis. I do too. So
we can either do it as a separate item or just be included in your presentations in the beginning. Either way, maybe better as an agenda item since it's kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It's a standing item.
Yeah, it could be Anyway, we'll talk about it, Eric, I guess, and decide each time. But if it's a real thick amount, like a really big agenda, maybe we can pass on it every once in a while. But I like having it as agenda item. So yes, noted. So do we need to vote? We don't need to vote on that, right? We're just, I think you got a yes in a lot of ways. Okay, so nobody else?
I'll get you next time.
Okay. Alrighty, then unless Eric, I have anything else that I'm supposed to do, I think I say goodbye, good night.
Meeting adjourned.
Meeting adjourned.
All right.
All right, you guys, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
Cal, did you go away?
Thanks, Lori.
No, I'm still here. Chris?
Gonna give me your phone number?
Sure. Area code.
Yeah.